There exists a secret that women guard as their most precious treasure. A secret so intimate, so profound, that they don't even confess it completely to their closest friends. It's about what truly excites them, what ignites that flame that goes far beyond any physical technique you've learned. And today, for the first time, I'm going to reveal it to you. I'm Dr. Anna, and for years I've been the silent witness to the most intimate confessions of thousands of women. I've listened to what they whisper in the privacy of my office. I've seen how they blush when admitting truths they've never spoken aloud. And what you're about to discover will forever change how you understand female desire. Before revealing what women never say out loud, make sure to subscribe to Hidden Language and hit the notification bell. Every week, we share psychological secrets that transform real relationships. Thousands of men are already seeing what was previously invisible. Let me tell you about Maria, a 35-year-old executive who came to my office with a disturbing confession. She had been in a relationship for 2 years with a man who, in her words, was physically perfect. He knew exactly what to do with his hands, knew every point on her body was technically flawless, yet something was terribly wrong. Every intimate encounter left her empty, unsatisfied, as if she were a spectator of her own experience. What was missing? What crucial element was absent from that apparently perfect equation? The answer will disturb you as much as it disturbed me when I first heard it. It wasn't a technique that Maria needed. It wasn't a new position or a trick learned from the internet. It was something infinitely more powerful and paradoxically simpler. You see, the female brain hides a truth that the adult entertainment industry, self-help books, and even many therapists have completely overlooked. Modern neuroscience has demonstrated something revolutionary. A woman's most powerful sexual organ isn't where you think it is. It's not her body. It's her mind. And that mind has specific codes, words that function as master keys, that open doors you didn't even know existed. When a woman hears certain words at the right moment, pronounced with the correct intention, something extraordinary happens in her brain. A neurological cascade is activated involving dopamine, oxytocin, and noradrenaline. It's literally a chemical explosion that no physical technique can replicate on its own. But here's the problem. Most men are completely blind to this phenomenon. They focus on the body when they should be seducing the mind. They worry about the how when they should be mastering what to say. To understand the power of these words, you need to comprehend something fundamental about female psychology. Women don't get excited just by physical stimuli. They get excited by narratives. They get excited by emotions. They get excited by the sensation of being truly seen, understood, and desired for who they really are. If this resonates with you, leave me a hidden yes in the comments. Now, let me share with you the 5 most powerful words you can pronounce to awaken a woman's deepest desire. Each of these phrases activates specific neural circuits that have been shaped by millions of years of evolution. The first phrase is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all. I think about you when you're not here. These 6 simple words have the power to completely transform how a woman perceives herself in your mental universe. Let me explain the science behind this. When a woman hears that she occupies mental space even in her absence, what neuroscientists call the anticipation reward system is activated. It's the same system that activates when we expect something that gives us pleasure. Dopamine begins to flow, creating a sensation of expectation and desire that is literally addictive. But there's something deeper happening here. These words communicate to her that she has a permanent place in your inner universe. She's not just something physical you desire when she's present. She's someone who inhabits your thoughts, your most private spaces. For a woman, this is infinitely more exciting than any compliment about her physical appearance. I remember Laura, one of my patients, who told me about the exact moment she fell madly in love with her now husband. It wasn't when he gave her flowers, nor when they had their first kiss. It was when he, completely casually, told her exactly this. Yesterday, while driving to work, I realized I was smiling because I was thinking about something silly you said. Laura confessed to me that those words marked her more than any elaborate declaration of love. Why? Because it showed her that he not only enjoyed her company when they were together, but that she had become part of his internal mental landscape. She had crossed the line from being an external experience to being an internal presence. The second phrase that will transform your relationship with any woman is, I love how your mind works. This declaration is devastatingly powerful because it touches one of the deepest fears and one of the most intense desires of the female psyche. Women have been conditioned for centuries to believe that their main value lies in their physical appearance. They live in a society that constantly reduces them to objects of contemplation. That's why when a man recognizes and specifically appreciates their intellect, their way of processing the world, their unique way of thinking, something unlocks inside them. This phrase activates what we call the intellectual validation circuit. It's an area of the brain that lights up when we feel our thoughts and perspectives are valued. For women who often feel their opinions are minimized or ignored, hearing this from a man they desire is like drinking water after days in the desert. But there's a specific technique to maximize the impact of these words. Don't say them generally, be specific. Instead of, "I love how you think," say, "I'm fascinated by how you connected those two concepts that seemed unrelated." Instead of a vague compliment, give her a concrete example of something she said or thought that really impressed you. The third phrase is perhaps the most vulnerable of all, but also the most powerful. "You're the only one who makes me feel this way." These words touch the deepest core of female desire, emotional exclusivity. Let me explain something crucial about female psychology. Women don't compete so much to be the most beautiful or the most sexual. They compete to be the most special. They want to be irreplaceable in your emotional universe. They want to know that what they feel with you is unique, that the connection they have is impossible to replicate with another person. When you pronounce these words, you're communicating to her that she occupies exclusive territory in your emotional map. She's not just one more in a series of similar experiences. She's the experience. She's the woman who awakened emotions in you that you didn't even know existed. This phrase activates what evolutionary psychologists call the mate selection instinct. For thousands of years, women have evolved to value men who consciously choose them over all other available options. It's a profound confirmation of their unique value. But here comes the crucial element. These words must be true. A woman can detect falseness in these declarations with almost supernatural precision. Her intuition is finely tuned to identify when someone is manipulating versus when they're being authentically vulnerable. If you feel this message arrived exactly when you needed it, it's not coincidence. You're seeing what they normally hide. Give this video a like so more men can discover these hidden truths. The fourth revolutionary phrase is, "I trust you completely." These 4 words have the power to unleash a deep sexual response that goes far beyond the physical. Let me explain why. Trust is the most potent aphrodisiac that exists. When a woman feels that a man trusts her totally, not just with his secrets, but with his vulnerability, something extraordinary happens in her brain. Oxytocin is released, the same hormone produced during orgasm that creates deep emotional bonds. But there's something more subtle happening. Trust communicated verbally allows a woman to relax her psychological defenses. It gives her permission to be completely authentic, without masks, without performance. And paradoxically, when a woman feels completely safe, that's when she can access her wildest and most passionate side. I've seen this over and over in my practice. Women who describe themselves as frigid or uninterested in sex, who suddenly discover burning sexuality when they're with a man who transmits total security to them. It's not magic. It's basic neuroscience. Trust communicates to her primitive brain that she's safe to explore, to experiment, to let go. It's the difference between making love from fear and doing it from total freedom. But there's a specific way to communicate this trust that multiplies its power. Don't express it as an abstract declaration. Link it to concrete actions. I trust you with my deepest secrets. I trust that you'll always be honest with me. I trust your judgment, even when I don't understand your decisions. The fifth and final phrase is the most devastatingly effective of all. I'm fascinated by discovering you. These 4 words contain an implicit promise that touches every woman's deepest desire, to be known, to be explored, to be discovered in all her complexity. Most men make the fatal mistake of acting as if they've already solved their partner's mystery, as if after a few dates or months of relationship, they already know her completely. This is devastatingly boring for the female mind. Women are infinitely complex creatures, constantly evolving, with layers of depth that reveal themselves slowly. When a man recognizes this and expresses fascination with that process of continuous discovery, something ignites in her. This phrase activates what we call the novelty and exploration circuit. It's the same brain area that activates when we explore unknown territories or learn something completely new. For a woman, knowing she remains a fascinating mystery to you, that you keep finding new aspects of her personality that intrigue you, is profoundly exciting. But there's a specific technique to maximize the power of these words. Combine them with genuine curiosity. Ask her about aspects of her life, her past, her dreams that you've never explored. Show that you really want to know the parts of her she keeps guarded. I remember Elena, who told me about the moment her relationship went from lukewarm to burning. Her partner told her, "Every time I think I know you completely, you do something that surprises me. I love that you remain a mystery to me." Those words completely transformed how Elena saw herself in the relationship. From being someone predictable, she became someone fascinating. Now, let me reveal the secret behind why these 5 phrases are so powerful. It's not just what they say, but what they represent. Each of these declarations communicates that you see the woman in front of you as a complex, valuable, and unique human being, not as an object of desire, but as a fascinating person who deserves to be known, respected, and explored. This contrasts brutally with the experience most women have with men. They're accustomed to being reduced to their physical appearance, to being seen as conquests or trophies, to being desired but not really known. When you pronounce these words with sincerity, you're giving her something very few men have given her, the sensation of being completely seen. And when a woman feels truly seen, when she feels her thoughts, her complexity, her essence are valued, the response is explosive. But there's something critical you must understand. These words aren't magic formulas you can use mechanically. They're not seduction tricks. They're expressions of a completely different way of relating to women. A way that recognizes their complete humanity, that values their intellect as much as their body, that is fascinated by their complexity instead of trying to simplify it. If you try to use these phrases without really feeling them, without really adopting this perspective, you'll fail spectacularly. Women have an almost supernatural ability to detect manipulation. They can sense when you're following a script versus when you're being genuinely vulnerable. What I'm really sharing with you isn't just words. It's a completely new philosophy about how to understand and relate to women. It's the difference between being another man who chases them and being the man who understands them at a level they didn't even know was possible. This transformation in how you communicate with women will have effects that go far beyond the bedroom. When a woman feels you really see her, that you appreciate her complexity, that her mind fascinates you as much as her body, she develops a loyalty and passion toward you that is practically unbreakable. I've witnessed extraordinary transformations in my practice. Men who seemed condemned to superficial relationships, who suddenly develop deep and lasting connections. Women who describe themselves as sexually apathetic, who discover burning passion with men who apply these principles. The difference isn't in physical techniques. The difference is in understanding that the female brain is the most powerful sexual organ, and that the right words, pronounced with the correct intention, can create excitement that transcends the physical. But let me warn you about something important. Once you start communicating with women this way, once you start seeing and valuing them this way, there's no going back. Superficial connections become unsatisfying. Casual encounters lose their appeal. You become someone who seeks and attracts deep, authentic, transformative connections. This can be intimidating at first. It requires vulnerability. It requires being willing to be seen as deeply as you're seeing. It requires abandoning the mask of toughness that many men use to protect themselves. But men who have the courage to make this transition discover something extraordinary. They discover that when you relate to women from this perspective of deep respect and genuine curiosity, you not only choose better, but the best women also choose you. The words I've shared with you today are only the surface of a much deeper ocean. They're the gateway to a completely new way of understanding female desire, intimacy, and deep relationships. What seemed complicated becomes simple. What seemed unattainable becomes natural. When you understand that women get excited primarily through emotional and intellectual connection, when you comprehend that their greatest aphrodisiac is feeling truly known and valued, everything changes. You no longer need complicated techniques. You no longer need tricks or elaborate strategies. You only need the willingness to see women as complex and fascinating human beings, and the ability to communicate that perspective through your words and actions. These 5 phrases are your introduction to a world where relationships transcend the superficial, where intimacy is truly intimate, where desire is born from authentic connection instead of manipulation or technique. If you made it this far, you're already part of this forbidden circle. Subscribe now and discover what no one else dares to confess about the female mind, because what you've heard today is just the beginning of a journey toward a deeper understanding of what really moves a woman's heart and desire. Let me now share with you something that goes beyond individual words. It's what I call the symphony of female desire. Because it's not enough to know the right phrases if you don't understand how to orchestrate them, when to pronounce them, and how to create the perfect emotional context for them to have maximum impact. A few years ago, a patient named Ricardo came to my office with a frustration I've heard thousands of times. He was an intelligent, successful, physically attractive man. Women initially felt attracted to him, but invariably, after a few dates, they lost interest. Dr. Anna, he told me, I do everything I'm supposed to do. I take them to the best restaurants, give them the best gifts. I'm a perfect gentleman, but they always end up telling me they don't feel that spark. I asked him about his conversations with these women. He described perfectly polite, politically correct, safe exchanges. He talked about the weather, about work, about popular movies. He was, in his own words, the perfect boyfriend. And there was exactly his problem. Ricardo had confused being harmless with being attractive. He had eliminated all possibility of vulnerability, of authenticity, of real emotional connection. He was like an actor playing the role of good man instead of simply being human. When I taught him the 5 phrases you just learned, he initially rejected them. That's too personal, too intimate for a first date, he told me. Exactly. That was precisely the point. I explained something fundamental that changed his life forever. Women don't fall in love with perfect men. They fall in love with real men. Men who are willing to be seen, to show their imperfections, to admit their fears and desires. Perfection is boring. Authentic humanity is irresistible. 3 months later, Ricardo returned to my office with a smile I hadn't seen before. He had met Sophia, an artist who initially intimidated him with her intelligence and depth. Instead of his usual performance, he decided to apply everything we had discussed. On their second date, he told her, I'm fascinated by how you see the world in a completely different way than I do. You make me question things I took for granted. The effect was immediate. Sophia, who had been maintaining a polite distance, suddenly leaned toward him, her eyes lit up, and the conversation became deep and intimate. It was like I had found a secret frequency, Ricardo told me, like we were finally speaking the same language. This brings me to a crucial point I must emphasize. The words I've shared with you are not manipulation tricks. They're expressions of a deep philosophy about how to relate to women. And that philosophy can be summarized in one word: authenticity. Authenticity isn't just being honest. It's having the courage to show yourself as you really are, with your strengths and vulnerabilities. It's being willing to say what you really think, to show what you really feel, to admit when something matters deeply to you. Let me reveal another secret that women keep. They're tired of men who act. They're fed up with superficial conversations, generic compliments, men who seem to have come out of a seduction manual. What they really find irresistible is the rarity of a man who is completely present, completely authentic, completely committed to really knowing them. This brings me to the 6th secret, one I didn't mention before, but that is perhaps the most powerful of all: intentional silence. Yes, you heard right. Sometimes the most powerful word is the one you don't pronounce. Women live in a world of constant noise. Social noise, media noise, internal noise. They're accustomed to men who fill every moment of silence with words, who feel the need to constantly impress with their knowledge or achievements. When you learn to be comfortably silent with a woman, when you can simply look into her eyes without feeling the need to fill the space with words, you give her something extraordinary, the gift of your complete presence. I remember Carmen, a brilliant journalist who came to my office because she couldn't understand why she had fallen madly in love with a man who, in her own words, wasn't her type at all. He was a carpenter, without university education, without the professional achievements she habitually valued. "What made you fall in love with him?" I asked her. Her answer stayed with me forever. "The first time we were silent, I expected him to say something to impress me like all men do. But he simply looked at me, smiled slightly, and continued observing me as if I were the most fascinating thing in the world. I felt seen in a way I had never experienced." That man had mastered something most men never learn: the power of complete attention. He wasn't thinking about what to say next. He wasn't evaluating his performance. He wasn't trying to impress. He was simply present with her. This complete presence is what exponentially amplifies the power of the 5 phrases I shared with you. When you say, "I think about you when you're not here," while looking directly into her eyes, without distractions, without hurry, the impact multiplies by 10. Let me share with you the exact technique to maximize the power of these words. Call it the verbal intimacy protocol. First, create the right environment. This doesn't necessarily mean candles and romantic music. It means eliminating distractions. Put away your phone, turn off the television. Create a space where only you two exist. Second, establish eye contact before speaking. Really look at her. Don't just direct your face toward her. Notice the exact color of her eyes. Note how her expression changes. Allow there to be a moment of silent connection before pronouncing the words. Third, speak more slowly than feels natural to you. Important words need space to breathe, to be really heard and processed. When you say something significant too quickly, the brain processes it as casual information instead of deep emotional communication. Fourth, after pronouncing any of these phrases, allow silence. Don't immediately fill the space with more words. Give time for what you said to really penetrate, for her to process not just the meaning, but the intention behind your words. Fifth, observe her response not just verbally, but physically. Pay attention to how her breathing changes, how she leans toward you or away, how the energy in the space between you changes. Women communicate as much with their bodies as with their words. And when you learn to read this nonverbal communication, you can navigate the conversation with almost telepathic precision. But there's something more I must reveal to you, something that could completely change your perspective on relationships. I've discovered, after decades of research and thousands of consultations, that women have something I call depth hunger. It's an almost desperate desire for authentic connection that is rarely satisfied. They live in a world that constantly reduces them to their appearance, that values their function more than their essence, that bombards them with messages about how they should be instead of celebrating who they really are. When a man appears who genuinely wants to know their inner world, who asks deep questions, who is interested in their thoughts and not just their body, the response is explosive. This depth hunger explains why the 5 phrases I shared with you are so devastatingly effective. Each of them directly feeds this deep need to be known, valued, and explored as a complete human being. Let me take you one step further and share with you what I call the forbidden questions. They're questions that go beyond the surface, that open doors to conversations most people avoid, but that create unforgettable connections. Instead of, "How was your day?" ask, "What was the most interesting thing you thought today?" Instead of, "Where are you from?" ask, "What place shaped you most as a person?" Instead of, "What kind of music do you like?" ask, "What song immediately transports you to a specific memory?" These questions work because they invite the woman to access parts of herself she rarely shares, to reflect on aspects of her experience that normally remain private. When she does this with you, when she opens those normally closed doors, an intimacy is created that transcends the physical. I've seen men completely transform their love lives simply by changing the type of questions they ask. Suddenly, instead of boring and predictable dates, they're having conversations that last until the early hours of the morning. Instead of women who don't feel the spark, they're attracting women who feel deeply connected to them. But let me warn you about something crucial. This depth must be reciprocal. You can't ask deep questions and then give superficial answers when they ask you. Vulnerability must flow in both directions. When she shares something personal with you, you must be willing to share something equally personal with her. This brings us to one of the most common mistakes I see in my practice. Men who want intimacy from women but aren't willing to be intimate themselves. Who want to know their secrets but keep their own carefully guarded. Who demand vulnerability but don't offer it. Real intimacy is an exchange. It's a dance where both partners gradually reveal themselves, where depth meets depth, where authenticity is answered with more authenticity. Let me share with you a specific technique I call the mirror of vulnerability. When she shares something personal with you, instead of simply thanking or changing the subject, share something of similar level about yourself. If she tells you about a fear, share one of your fears. If she tells you about a formative experience, share one of yours. This reciprocity creates what psychologists call intimacy escalation. Each revelation invites a deeper revelation. Each moment of vulnerability opens space for more vulnerability until you find yourself in a more intimate and connected conversation than either of you has had with other people. At the end of the day, what I'm really sharing with you goes far beyond seduction techniques or strategies to attract women. It's an invitation to a completely different way of relating to human beings, a way that honors complexity, celebrates authenticity, and creates connections that transform both people involved. Women can sense when a man is following a formula versus when he's being genuinely human. They can detect when someone wants something from them versus when someone simply wants to know them. And they respond completely differently to each of these approaches. When you integrate these principles into your life, when you start seeing and valuing women as fascinating human beings instead of targets to conquer, something magical happens. You not only attract better women, but you become a better man. You not only have better relationships, but you develop a deeper capacity for intimacy and connection. Next week, we'll reveal the secret behind why some women sabotage the best relationships of their lives and how you can recognize and handle this pattern before it destroys something beautiful. You can't miss it.